Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. We'll jump right in this week. I'm going to use pencil for most of the exercise, but pen or anything else you have will work just fine. And we're going to explore this interconnecting of points with lines to form the faces of an undulating surface, a network for our imagination to enter into with pattern and connection, and we'll see where it leads us. Perhaps, like my eye, you see forms and shapes that take realm in the world, like architecture. Perhaps you just see a quilt or a network, perhaps pattern and play. Whatever it is, we'll start with just a line, just the breath, and that following of action and a mindful engagement with the medium. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. I think I'll use pencil mostly, but anything should be fine. I'll do the warm-up in pen, just a little darker, easier to see. How do we describe this one? Some kind of polygon surface for generating some patterns, basically a bunch of connected straight lines that move in and out and loosely make some form of grid. We'll see where it goes. The basic idea could be that you have a line that kinks and bends and works across in a direction, whatever that might be. But I think we'll experiment a little with the way we draw those segments. We can do them as quick strokes. It doesn't have to always undulate exactly. It can go in the same direction sometimes. Wherever a line segment ends, it turns in some way at that next movement or motion. Do more deliberate strokes rather than the flick from start to finish, a commanded line here to there. And these can work in both directions. Once something is established, we have points where it turns. We can connect those points across space. Sometimes they may line up nicely. Other times they have to diverge or converge. And slowly we build up a network of all of the little segments of a line. We'll work a little vertical, a little horizontal, and then once there's some form of pattern there happening, we can begin to draw into it, use it as a structure or a guide. So I'll use pencil for myself because then I can make some of the lines go away as pattern develops, as the pencil fades and pen stays more prominent. But again, either will work. You may begin to see, even in quick zigzagging, intersecting grid, that some things look 3D or look like form or surface, others just jumble around the points. We'll see if we can take advantage of a little of that as we draw and imagine. That'll be the starting point. What comes after that, and maybe take a moment or two just to play with. You could bend the edges to change the relationship between the faces. You could have shapes sit inside the faces. You could have smaller grids or structures form inside. This will all come later as you see fit to start to experiment within whatever forms there. But it might give direction, tone, or shape a little bit more to the flexing grid system. First, we make the larger format. And you can take a moment with the paper and Give yourself some time to align to a direction. You start working more vertically out, more horizontally across, or perhaps diagonally. Bring whichever direction you kind of feel as a starting or guiding point to that initial figure on the page you'll work with. All will be the same. We'll work in both directions eventually, but we always need a place to start. You can take a couple of breaths, sit in a little moment of your own space, and pick the one that just sounds right for today. And when you feel ready, establishing a way of drawing the lines, continuous, segmented, quick or slow, that you'll start with. Find place beginning with the tool. Envision the direction you'll first move and take that first action to mark on the page. And I think I'll be working in segments, kind of repositioning, but as you go, you just work in a direction, in and out, bending forward, back, left and right, wandering a little. Just a few segments that form out a non-straight connection between two areas. And now the page is marked. You can look at it for a moment, see how that establishes distinction, differentiation, maybe an above and below or left and right, a large and small area or evenly spaced wherever you began. And with that segment established, again, visually making a choice, all of them the right choice of working in layers in the same direction or growing out from this starting point. I think I'll grow out, but any will work again. Eventually we'll get to a grid, so I see this one as the root for something to grow upwards and begin again at some point, establishing, setting the direction, and beginning that same series of actions, in and out segments, working their way across or through the paper. We'll do several of these, so work at the pace of your drawing, the size of your page, each one taking a moment with the beginning place, letting the eyes take in whatever exists around on the page, and starting with a nice, refreshing breath, direction, motion, guiding that pen or pencil along a series of paths, connected with this joint, working as one and making each on its own. If we know we're making a net, you could have similar numbers of bends and turns, kinks and redirections. But I think it's nice just to let it form and let the net become a place of exploration. And we've got a little bit going on the page, way of drawing the segments. We're starting to fill out some of that space. We can connect a little more with each action of our line, each action of our segment. Looking at the exhalation whenever a new segment draws, letting a breath out doesn't have to be full, it might just be a small poof. There may or may not be an inhalation between them. The exhalation with action, the important part to focus. The inhalation happens where it needs to happen. The body will take care of it. But you may begin to notice when the body asks for an inhalation of air, giving a pause, letting it take that space to replenish, and then drawing with the exhalation. Each new segment and expression out from the body through the pen or pencil, through the medium, and through the breath. And from time to time, you may catch yourself getting away from yourself in the sense that can you draw just with the exhalation? And pause and wait for the inhalations to catch up when they need to. Do several of these, begin to get a dense net. If you're filling up based on what's on the page, you can switch directionality, begin working your way through the network, connecting points to points in any way that it strikes your eye. It does not have to be a grid. Maybe avoid crossing, but it's up to you. Following the same pattern of letting the inhalation happen, working with the exhalation, pausing that space when the body communicates, I need a little more air. We've reached a cycle. A simultaneous listening and guiding. The breath can sometimes be like the lines, sporadic, coming out at different speeds and intensities, coming out different rhythms depending on activity, feeling, environment, or attention. And as you work into the larger grid, you can continue in a linear fashion, back and forth, all across one direction. Or you may find Hachi jumping around, all work with that same cycle of an exhalation between 2 points, an inhalation whenever it calls. And if you catch yourself drawing on the inhalation from time to time, just to notice, brings it back to the foreground, keeps our mind present. And we return to engaging with the exhalation as that primary interface to action. Mostly you'll start to see four-sided shapes, three-sided shapes, but you might find others if your eye is interested in multi-sided polygons. Follow what it sees. Our attention on the inhalation and exhalation of tracking connections between points in space with that gentle exhale, breathing into the figure, into the forming of something on the page, the network of related points, the connection between edges, a surface forming in the collection of faces bound by sides. A continuous landscape or territory of that rhythmic cycle of the breath that perhaps over time has settled in to something comfortable for you. I find myself drawn to 2 exhales to every inhale. But what is your cycle depends on the speed and fullness of the inhalation, completeness of the exhalation and action, and the speed of drawing and engagement all working together. A guide and a process. And with that breath well established in the network, taking shape, connections filling out, you may be reaching an end to the available points of the patchwork. As you do, you can start to take in the whole configuration. Note if you see anything in terms of form, perceived dimension. Our eye can easily find the bumps in and out as potential 3D forms, or maybe just shapes on a page, whichever works. Take in the edges, the outer boundaries. Look for places that pop out to you. Perhaps the bottom or side edge can be strengthened with a little redrawing over to ground or establish more figure to the whole. Perhaps there's internal lines, moments of convergence, compression to highlight. Perhaps some of the pass through the network take on more shape, call to the eye, just using what you see in that re-motioning of the hand as a place to get familiar with what you're making there on the page. I see a few key vertical ones, moments of continuity, extending out, that call my vision, give them a little emphasis, to a thickening of line. And as you're ready, now we can find our way to explore and experiment, layering something in to this network. We have a lot of opportunities and places to play, to find shape or pattern. And something that came to my mind early while sketching through it was just the bending of lines out into space and making a local undulation in the larger undulation. Expanding from an edge, opening it up a little bit, bringing some curvature in, with little bow shapes winding or weaving their way along a path. It could be that, could be little windows or enclosures, could be contours, tracking lines again and again, filling out some space. Could be many things across different parts of the drawing, so feel free to explore or follow along. Now we have a network of points and empty spaces, a canvas re-engaging, re-exploring with on the paper. As you let your eye and imagination guide you, keep one sense on the breath of engagement. Not too fast, not too slow, not held, not hyperventilating, just breathing with action. Noticing the start and stop of things. And take a few minutes to draw and explore your canvas. If anything else, you can just highlight edges and extend out to fill the page. Whatever pulls you into the space. And once you find an interface or an action to the thing, you can begin to follow it along to different directions and dimensions. Left and right, up and down, across, through, and see how it adapts, changes the look of the form, the perception, and then maybe adding a little texture, shade to things for differentiation. Now the drawing, both the network of points moving up and down, in and out, network of lines making surfaces, the new pattern or network of overlaid shapes, tones, or textures, obfuscating or enhancing what's below, all starting to work together in a larger canvas, maybe suggesting seeing something, maybe just strange, arbitrary shapes, whichever you start to see. Work with it, explore it, Fill in spaces of the network. And let it grow to a consistent, coherent image of lines and curves, repeated applications and variable local conditions, a flexing, moving, living canvas, guided by the hand and the breath, interpreted by the eye, engaged with movement, and your attention to that space of connection and interface between an instrument, body, and the page. With the collection of the many, there might be a lot to do, a lot to apply and fill out, a lot of places to try a similar thing or to complete the whole. And maybe, hopefully, you're going to have some time to do that either all at once or coming back at various times, reopening, re-seeing, re-engaging the elements on the page, layering in new readings and new information. Doing it for the time you can bring your attention to it. And when you feel fatigue in the technique, fatigue in the imagination, you know you've done a little exercise there for the mind, for the hand. That mindful attention of presence and creative act. And it tells it's time to take a small break, noticing when we need a little rest, bringing the pen or pencil to completion, taking a few breaths as you let the imagination calm a little bit. Or if you have more energy and more interest, keep on drawing. But the exercise together comes to a close, and you move off on your own path through the day, taking from this a little bit of, hopefully, relaxation, a little preparedness of the whole body to engage with whatever you work on throughout the day. And a couple of nice full breaths to fill out and fill up all the parts of the body. These things often get read through the eyes of our influences. You may see this collection of lines in very different ways. The painter, or an architect, designer, they see things they're used to creating. A writer or mathematician may see patterns, narratives, structure. A woodworker may see possible joints and connections. Wherever we are, in whatever way our eye is trained, our mind is conditioned to see, we find our own interface into the worlds we make there on the page. A place of playful exploration, expression without need of purpose, not an output, but an input to our mind. A little potential world at play to discover within, just from connection of a few points in space, building up their complexity, changing the orders of dimension and geometry, and our brain's ability to interpret, interface, connect with, and imagine new things in that material, the page. Then this could continue on and on, but at some point we bring it down to a rest, leave a few open bits for that reimagining, re-exploring later on. Just free to not be defined. But whatever you do, have a good day and draw well. Thank you.